major thing, in fact, David, I think, you know, is it, for example, let's can we reverse this? So maybe I can see what I'm doing on the screen as opposed to this little tiny, you know, like postage stamp size. So David, could you, yeah, okay, good. Okay, so maybe what we do is we change, okay. Okay, now, and this is tricky because in a lot of ways, you know, how much do you have to know? You know, that's an open question. How much do you have to know? But for example, if you see the, it's probably better to do it this way. Yeah, ikkyo, nikyo, sankyo. Yonkyo is the same grip as ikkyo, but it's more a weight under as opposed to. Ikkyo is a thrust, okay, thrusting motion. Now, most of which you find, you know, it's like, for example, you know, there's sort of an eclectic Aikido form, and most people see ikkyo as a sword cut. But my sense, you know, the further you go, you convert the sense of a sword thrust, sword cut, to a thrusting motion. It's not 100% that, but for example, this motion. Now, if somebody comes to grab you here, you position here, you rotate the body, okay? And then you take the hand here. So in some sense, right here, there seems to be a position where the thumbs face each other. But see, I'm turning, not just twisting, but turning the whole body. All right. Now see how the thumb goes forward? Now the other thing is, for example, if you're taking the elbow, you are also rotating that so that the thumb goes forward. And so this is difficult to do with a staff, but it's fun. And when you get that change, you'd be surprised. You know, it's hard to do right now because you don't have somebody to just, unless you have a significant other or a housemate that does Aikido, and you know, social distancing, you know, it's in household. It's hard to kind of do that. But David, remember that thing about the position of the hand here on ikkyo and where you actually go this way. So instead of thinking about ikkyo this way, you go ikkyo that way. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. Could you expound on that for a second? I don't know. I mean, you obviously tried it in class, right? So did you have any experiences with that you might feel like sharing?
Well, something that I've been kind of working on myself is that the difference, like you said, ikkyo is more thrusting, and then nikyo is when the thrust encounters resistance, it can come back into itself.
Yeah, now nikyo kind of is a gathering movement. Now, once you gather, there's kind of a thrust in it. See, weapons work is the easiest way of understanding Aikido weapons is sword. Everything's a cut. But if you go into, you know, there's a cutting motion. But what we've been doing lately has been working cut. Oops. For example, you know, there's a cutting motion, but it's also thrust. Boom. The actual closer of the motion, there's that thrusting feeling to it. And so as you kind of go a little bit more into Aikido, you know, one person that actually I learned, you know, that a lot about the ikkyo, nikyo, sankyo was Kapo Sensei. Because he had a whole system of, you know, this is ikkyo. thumbs away. This is nikyo. This is sankyo. This is yonkyo. This is gokyo. Okay? So, you know, the hand changes in positions. They're not strictly one for one, but, you know, when you're holding the staff, you are also practicing those changes. And as you get everything in order, this is my observation, you know, it could be wrong, right? That you see everything more as a thrusting motion as opposed to a cutting motion. Even the gokyo ho motion, that's a thrust. The raising motion. I'm going to raise, I'm going to cut. It's a thrust. Thrust. Somebody is on the roof, it's a ninja, boom, assassin, boom, thrust. All right? And then thrust. Okay? So I think since we're on a discussion topic, let's go where we can move and get more of a full screen. Okay? And all right. Yes. So I don't have a full Joe, but I do have this, which is in space here a little better, okay? But the ikkyo motion. This is nikyo, sankyo, yonkyo, gokyo. Now you can, it's not a strict one for one, okay? In fact, can we, no, actually, this, oops. I think what I'll do is I'll raise this middle section. And hopefully, we'll change the camera angle where things can be a little clearer. This is ikkyo. Now, most of the common ikkyo, you're dealing with somebody coming this way, okay? And so, you know, let's just say they're coming with the right, okay? So there's a tendency to go here, right? And then you come underneath, and then there's a tendency to twist the arm and take, you know, either you twist, then you step, or you're adding a twisting motion here. And you kind of see the thumbs facing each other, okay? But what happens right there is a lot of times you create a wall. So you got to twist, or you got to push down, or, you know, conversely, the person just walks away, okay? Right? And so one of the things here, this is, you know, now the position here becomes a thrusting position. So not, okay. I mean, that's just been my, for example, Kato Sensei never said, okay, this is why it's ikkyo, this is why it's nikyo. It's just, you know, you have to kind of draw upon your own body of experience. But, you know, those of you with a staff or something, a little shorter for the camera. This is coming at you. Okay. Now, I thought what Bonnie was saying, what Linda Holiday Sensei was doing, it was interesting because she's using the staff as an uke. All right, that's good. That's very good. But for example here, this is the right hand coming at me, okay? Here. Now what happens is you see the left hand underneath takes the elbow and catches here. And then when you step in, you know, you're in this position, and really what you have is a nikyo position. Nikyo is containment. You must contain, okay? And for example, I'm a vessel and there's a leak. Right now, once you contain, you can pour. Once you contain, you can pour. But if you're leaking, you can pour, but it's a mess, okay? So let's take the right. Now this is here, but rotating with the hand blade, you take, this is ikkyo. Okay. Now the other one is coming this way. So engage, engage. Now you grab here, and right here you run into something. But what happens right here if you continue to rotate before you take your here? Then you're turning. Okay. So ikkyo, and the way Hikizuchi Sensei taught it, the grip is from the top. So everybody in Shingu grip this way. Okay. Now there's a certain amount of variation in the Aikido things, but Hikizuchi Sensei would bring us in the office sometimes. I actually one time got a chance to see the scroll of Sensei presented them. Okay, and it was just positions and everything like that. But he also brought out other books, classical spear or naginata, and this is the grip. Aikido tends to be this way sometimes because there's a certain amount of variation and freedom and everything like that. But there are certain things, like here, this grip. See, it's an extension. Here, well, my energy is going this way, but what's coming at me is coming this way. It's here. Oh, okay. So if we were to go through this again, something's coming towards you. Now here, I catch the elbow and I twist the elbow. I form nikyo. That's containment. Ikkyo is forming that stream or river going that way. Okay. And one of the things, is that I absolutely know that 50 years ago? No. Did I know that 40 years ago? No. It's probably in the last 5 or 6 years. I thought, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right? All right? Right? Oh, okay, now, this is here, all right? And then we're going this way. Now we're going to turn. Instead of going this way, you see, I start to twist here, but we catch and slide. Now we take it. Then we can turn. Okay? And so the tenkan is also kind of a thrusting motion. Boom. Boom. Okay? So this is my observation. As you continue, in most Aikido, especially what I kind of see as kind of a classic homebrew style, it's very much, boom, it's a sword cut. It's a sword cut, raising. It's easy to teach. If you want to mass market something, that's a good way. Boom, sword. I swing the sword, my arms get stronger. Okay. There's physical development, there's exercise. But if you're going to look at it, now, this is, to me, this is like Isaac Newton, Newtonian physics. That's good. Well, Sensei, this is Einsteinian physics. Okay? There are elements of Sensei's movement. If I watch, a lot of the homebrew movements that are on there, they're angles. A lot of Sensei's entering angles for that's preserved, okay? But one thing that I see with O-sensei is everything's a thrust. Even the turn and pivot is a thrusting motion. Turn and pivot is a thrusting motion, okay? Now, where this starts to really change, okay? For example, in Shingu, we didn't do shomenuchi ikkyo that way. You move first. Boom. The other person covered the opening to the face. Now the attacker is thinking about that. But the second that thought is there, boom, boom, who was the nage, would move first, intercept that, and therefore that happened. So when you're moving this way, you see the thrust much easier. And if you're going this way, you oftentimes go this way, and you form the containment form. Okay? So ikkyo, boom. Ikkyo, boom. Ikkyo, still ikkyo, still ikkyo, still ikkyo on the cut, still ikkyo on the cut. Okay? Nikyo. Ikizuchi sensei taught ikkyo, and he taught nikyo, and he also taught sankyo. I got a little bit from Kato sensei. Kato sensei explained the yonkyo and gokyo, although, you know, boom, 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 boom. Okay? Now, so, you know, to me, what that really is, it's in basketball or anything, is called chalk talk. How much of that do you have to know? Very little. You can go to class and train and everything like that. But if you were, for example, to be of a certain sort of ilk, which is like, you're not just learning or study is an ongoing thing. And so anybody with a comment, or does that confuse you, or does that enlighten you, or is it a little bit like, you know, it doesn't, not everybody thinks that way. I happen to think that way. So anybody, David, any observations or non-observations?
Well, the more I train with different people, the more I begin to see that the names for techniques are just sort of labels that can be applied to lots of different things. And the important thing is understanding what a particular person means by a label, and not whether that label applies to everything.
Well, there's two thoughts. That's absolutely correct. All right. I mean, in this culture right now, the major lesson is be safe, keep others safe, and the other one is Black Lives Matter. So there's a particular time period, and within that time period, you blend, okay? But there's also the thought that, for example, all these forms, what Sensei said, came out of kami. They came out of, and kami are energies that actually motivate and the building blocks of creation, okay? And one of the things we read recently was that at the beginning of things, there was a reverberation, a movement, okay? Boom, the Big Bang. What was there before? Not clear. You can speculate on it. But out of nothing, something happened. There was a boom, boom. Or conversely, you and your partner, a little bit more complex because there's a you and something else, is that there's a movement, which you are then moving in, boom. So if you trace the training back to a more original sense, then things, there's a freedom in society. This is by no means anything you go, well, you're wrong, because Jack Wada said your understanding of nikyo was totally screwed. Okay. So yeah, you say good, you know, good. But what I'm saying a little bit, there's a difference between that. If you're initiating, you go here, then you go like this because everybody else goes that way. But you're forming a containment, and here, boom, that's boom. Now once you get that boom, initial movement, which can also be seen as boom, boom. Did that by itself, cut up and down, cut. See how the cut, boom, becomes like a thrust, boom. Okay. And this is just you or me being a scientist. You can go into, I'm sure Einstein and Newton might argue. Did Newton have the tools to understand Einstein? I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm Einstein. I'm just saying, okay. Okay. Now, nikyo. The thumb is towards you already. But rotate the hips. What happens? The thumb goes out, doesn't it? Now, put the hand here at the elbow. Okay. What I'm going to do is the same thing I did with ikkyo. If I'm going to enter, I'm going to boom, not lock and form the containment, because I kind of want to form the thrust. Boom, and then walk. But, say it's going this way, but I'm going to take the wrist. I must contain. Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm forming a containment, and then I'm going to pour. Okay, and I don't want a leak. Boom, boom, nikyo. But hips first, then rotate. Now here, if I'm going to enter, I want you to see where, boom, I'm forming this at the elbow, boom. If I want to contain, I bring it closer, point the thumb towards me, containment, flow, like I'm pouring, okay? And to some degree, see, it depends on the level of your commitment. Now, if somebody says, Jack, go back to school, revisit physics, calculus, advanced math, and become a physicist. Would I do that? No. For me, a lot of the stuff is just general, but it shapes the direction of my intelligence, which also shapes my current understanding of emotion. Okay? Sankyo. And we can't try this right now, but see how this, the thumbs face you. Okay? Now, let's just say we go here. Okay. Now, sankyo is where you get this crazy change. Okay. Well, but what's interesting about the sankyo is most people go here and they run into a lot of trouble because they see it here. But it's a thrust. Instead of twisting the wrist, there's a twist at the wrist, but it goes through the elbow. Boom, boom, boom. If you're just doing the sankyo, that's fine. You get exercise, you get a certain amount of you build community, you build friendship, that's important. But if you really want to understand how the thing works, this stuff used to keep me up at night. I'm sure relativity theory, I'm not Albert Einstein. But at some point, if you go into weapons, there's a general thing, you respect what everybody says, the person, you respect their lineage, their teachers, why they're doing the art. But at some point, sankyo, I'm running into power, sankyo. But when I tilt this way, say I'm twisting the wrist, but elbow, You know who really does this well? Robert Nadeau Sensei. In fact, he used to teach an awful lot where you would go this way and you would throw and uke would sit, which is very, he's turning sankyo into gokyo ho. This is a little bit like a baseball stance. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, see that? And just the ability, for example, to instead of stopping here and twisting the wrist and extending through the elbow, you'd be surprised. Okay, now that's knowledge, and you'll remember it, and then you'll forget it the next time you go to class. And then you may remember it. A lot of this is, where your knowledge base is something that is second nature to you. Okay? And yonkyo, I'm going to go here. Then what I'm going to do is twist. See, right in moving the hips, there's already a twist here. Then, boom. Likewise, somebody's coming in, you're going to go here. You're going to, all this is the side, this is tenkan. But the finish of it is not twist this up, boom. So, boom, yonkyo. Not. The twist is to get you to here or to here. The twist is in your hips. And the finish is a thrust. Boom. And getting the perfect execution of that is almost impossible because we're in an imperfect world. You blend with the fact that whoever you're working with is your partner. And almost whatever you're going to do is imperfect. But it can be imperfectly perfect or perfectly imperfect. We're working towards a truth. We may not be in that truth, but we are moving towards it. Okay? So these are just some insights I had. Now, for example, let's just say we go like this. And for example, this is most commonly seen, yokomen. You go over here, okay? And then you go this way, and you form, you position the hand for ikkyo. But it's usually a kanto, knife taking, but you can get cut. So you go this way. Here, this is extending, but you position here, so you turn the blade away from you as you move in. You take down there or front. And so that's the gokyo change. This is nikyo, or a kind of bastardization of ikkyo, which means the knife can cut you. Here, you extend, but you put this here so you can rotate the blade away. And then the takedown is a thrusting motion. Okay? So we have ikkyo, nikyo, sankyo, yonkyo, gokyo. Okay? Something is coming this way at you, but it's sharp coming towards you. You go this way to do ikkyo, the wrist gets cut. But you extend, turn this here, rotate the blade away. That's shomenuchi, gokyo. Kato Sensei once told me, he says the most difficult Swadiwaza movement was shomenuchi gokyo with a tanto. Why? Because, that initial motion, we're so ingrained to grab for ikkyo, which leaves the wrist vulnerable, as opposed to getting a full extension, but the thumb is in this gokyo position. Then, so you can rotate the blade away from you as you begin the motion in or turning. Okay? So, that's a quick encapsulation of ikkyo, nikyo, sankyo, yonkyo, gokyo. Okay? So does anybody, any of that make sense? Am I just speaking to the wall here? Anybody?
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the way I've been kind of understanding things is not, I learn the form and then you forget the form, except then you notice that, hey, I just did that form without thinking about it and without knowing what I was doing while it was happening. I went, oh, that was ikkyo after all.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know what it is? You have a certain amount of native magic power, and then you have promise, so they send you to Hogwarts that really understand magic. You see what I mean? You
I'd
can
rather
pull
go to
stuff
Dr.
off.
Strange's school.
Most education will take you away from that and teach you rigid rules, but all right. But anyway, anybody else chime in? Does that?
I think you just broke Bonnie with that metaphor.
I'm sorry, what?
I literally fell down.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, the whole thing, for example, let's just go into, I'm gonna move on, okay? Now here, we have what I call not the 30 movement kata, but the 30 movement misogi, okay? And the first couple of movements, 1, 2, 3, 4, are kind of, you know, just to make it more like we're from O Sensei's lineage. As opposed to a lot of people that studied with him, they don't necessarily acknowledge that stuff. It's great to hear. But after 4, this is 5. That's movement number 5. That's ikkyo. Movement number 6, the thrust, ikkyo. Movement number 7, which is both up and down, is still ikkyo. Movement number 8 is ikkyo. Thumbs face away. Now we're going to change hands, but the thumbs still face away for your movement number 9. Boom. Movement number 10. Now, that's all ikkyo. All the way from 5 to 10, in one form or another, whether it's a thrust or a cut, or this up and down motion, the thumbs face away. That's all ikkyo. Okay? Okay, now, movement number 11. Thumbs face each other. Turn. Cover. 11. 12. That's still nikyo. 13, up and down, right. Now, 14, thumbs face you. 15, 14, 15. Now we're going to switch back to nikyo. 16 is turn and cut. 17 is yonkyo. Go back to nikyo. 18, 19, 20, 21. That's all nikyo. This is gokyo, the knife change one. But it's a good way, 22. Now, figure 8, both hands. That's 23. 24, we're back to the ikkyo position. Now, this is what I call the fire-water changes. 25, thumbs face down, step back. 26, we're back to ikkyo. 27, fire-water change. Okay. Now, 28, we're back to ikkyo, but we had a step turn, cut. 29 is complex. That's thumbs face each other, they face away, they face each other, and 30. Okay? So that particular 30 movement, whatever, misogi, I call it a misogi. Okay? as opposed to a kata. And it's misogi for one reason or another, but you know, good stuff. The more you go through it, the more you find. Okay, study. You keep studying something. It's a deeper study, a deeper study, a deeper study, a deeper study, and it feeds a deeper level of training. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so that part of it. All right. Okay, now question for everybody. We have gone over the 30 movements. Does that give you a better understanding of it? Anybody?
Sensei, for me, it definitely did.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brother's young as kids.
Yeah.
From what I mentioned initially with Linda Holiday, I realized what I was doing when I was imagining it with my hands this way. I was focusing more on trying to imagine the uke in front of me. As you went through these with the hands this way, for example, for ikkyo, it helped bring me back to the focus within myself, so the misogi within myself. So as we were doing it, excuse me, I definitely felt with what you said about all of the ikkyo as a thrust, with that and with the center, I started feeling some muscle memory come back from 20 years ago. It's like, oh yeah, that's what ikkyo felt like when I did it. So it felt like internally. Whereas what I was focusing on before was, am I doing the external technique? So what I got from class today, Sensei, was a definite connection and feeling the misogi of the motions as I focused more on how it felt internally doing an ikkyo without thinking about the other partner. And what you mentioned of the jo or the hanbo as the uke, I like that way of description. But as you went through all of the different motions at that speed, I was able to follow along during this class and feel it.
You know the actual sequence of it, but the actual sense of what this is, 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 okay, is maybe a little different. Now, the other thing that we add, is, there's a thumb up, thumb up, thumb down, thumb up, thumb down. These, and this is pretty arbitrary. See, I kind of, with a little bit of guidance, okay, I kind of, I mean, did I create that? Nado Sensei and I were doing some channeling, and so I got this assignment from, you can say where did it come from, the kami, from O Sensei, whatever. It says, this is what you're going to do. Now, he got something else. I can't remember what it was. But I was supposed to come up with, because, I was very, okay. To me, it just flowed, okay? But you will create a form, a structure for that, for other people. I went, and then it took about 3 years. And then I got thumb down, okay. Okay, so, that was about it. Yes, and so what I decided, it came as, I was going to include ikkyo, nikyo, sankyo, yonkyo, gokyo. And then I was going to teach the beginnings of, how to kind of improvise, all right? We're going to go into a classical music education. And then we're going to start to play jazz. Okay? So, it's in the 30 movements, all right? That was hard. It was really hard to take something that was very like breathing. So, okay, how do you breathe? Okay? So, everything goes back to a first movement, a first reverberation, a first echo, a first breath. And so as you are doing, see, the gyo, the misogi, is to take the I, which is very, very, I'm not like anybody else. I go, I mean, all the details out there, but you go to a deeper level of you, and a deeper level of you, and a deeper level of you, then all of a sudden, boom, boom, all movements, whether it's that boom or they come out, they're an echo of that original reverberation, vibration, breath. You can see it as a thrusting motion or a cutting motion or a turning motion. And so as you get clearer, the energies organized. You know, Sensei's level, he was so clear, the energies that organized through him were divine. They were kami. And therefore he was also kami. In some sense, you could look at that because the substance of his motion and him in that moment were energies that you could say were divine enough to be kami. So, you know, I called it not a kata, but a misogi, a 30 movement misogi. That's kind of my own way of naming it, okay? Anybody else with a question or comment on that?
I'm very glad that you created this sequence for a misogi because trying to inhabit the same space you're in without some structure is, for me, personally quite daunting. And this amount of structure that you've given it has allowed me over the last few years to begin to feel like I'm stepping into that larger space with a little more confidence and a little less just wondering. I don't wonder if I'm getting it. I know how I'm getting it a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Whereas before I was just kind of baffled and, you know, am I getting it? I don't know. Now I feel like, oh, I'm starting to get something that I wasn't getting before.
Well, one thing that, you know, you said it was in one of the recent broadcasts, and I was kind of editing it to put it on YouTube. And you said every time, it just changes all the time. Okay? But one thing I realized is that, you know what the constant is? If you're looking for a constant, it's you changing and transforming. That's the constant. That's what misogi is. I mean, if, you know, all of a sudden, you know, and whatever stupid, do I really expect this 30 movement thing to outlive me? No, it might, but I don't expect it to. But
it will after I publish my book.
When you publish your book, yeah, well, maybe.
I want to hear more about the book.
But the point is, you know, I mean, if Christ actually reincarnated, he might not particularly like how everything has been organized in his name. And in a sense that right now, we probably look at things and be kind of happy that people are training and they're getting to know each other. And there's a big part of him that probably goes, oh, so, you know, the whole thing right here, how much do you have to know? All right. That's a constant mantra. Okay. Now, what if I can explain a little bit to give you, to start your thought processes so that you're at a different level of study. There's also a different level of you there. Okay? If you're on a different level of study, there's a different level of you. Different level of view, different level of study, different level of practice. Okay, so if we can kind of go through that, then that's a lot of what, see, most people don't want to do that. All they really want to do is come in, and I understand that. And for that particular reason, I'm kind of frustrating for a lot of people. They just want to come on and train with their friends, and they're interested in the art, but that's what is there. And for me, that's never been me. Okay? Never been me. Mary and Linda senseis went back to Japan. I had done my second visit there, and then they both went back. And they kind of asked the Japanese, and they just said, you know, about me, for example. There's another guy there that everybody knew, and he got kicked out. They knew him really well. And so she asked about me, and they said, well, I don't know, we don't really know Jack all that well. And Mary said, well, why? He said, well, he was always with the teachers. I was always Hikisuchi sensei yelling at me to come over there and sit with him. Or, you know, we try to hang out with Anno, Tojima, Yanase senseis. You know, I had a personal relationship with them because I came in with that first group of foreigners. And so, yeah, I mean, those relationships. So I never really hung with the students. Okay, for me, it was always like, okay, you know, there's the next level and the next level and the next level and the next level. And, you know, I train with them. They're good people. But, you know, I can see why they didn't get me at all. Okay, and so I'm hard for people. It's not that I discount that. I think it's wonderful that people find a type of activity. But to really go deeper into the movement means at some level you go deeper into you, even if it's a study. Okay, we get, okay, this, you know, it can be learned that way. But it's really more than anything else, it's about discovery. You discover you. That's what study is. It's about discovery. If you keep studying the same stuff, it's the same you. As you discover more things, you discover more of yourself. And therefore, let's just say that you're in a social environment, there's more of you to offer that environment. If you're training with somebody, there's more of you to offer your training partner. And in that way, that's fine. But people tend to get satisfied with very little. Okay? So, you know, I was watching, it was sort of like, you know, all these shots Stephen Curry made. It was about a 12-minute video. And, you know, it was like Jean-Luc Picard has this statement, you know, in Star Trek, The Next Generation, and also in his current series. He says it's one impossible thing at a time. So I was watching that, and I said, you know, this is one impossible thing at a time. And, you know, because, you know, it's over a 5-year period, and I don't know how many games. But when you see them back to back to back to back to back, you go, wow, you know? And if I ever get back into a gym, you know, or, you know, I'm going to work on this reversal, because he goes here, this will get blocked. But it goes like this, and this will get blocked. But it goes like this, and he puts it in an arc with a spin off, and it goes in. And when I see him do something, and I'm more active, I go, how did he do that? And I go, okay, there's this, there's the angle, there's the spin, there's the trajectory. And, you know, I can't do it as well as him. I go, oh, okay, that's it. And if I go, wow, and, you know, and I'm drinking my beer and hugging my buddies because the Warriors just won a game, that's fun. But I've never been that way. It's like, wow, this is fantastic. All right, one impossible thing at a time. But you see, everybody here, you are the impossible thing, and you can discover yourself as one impossible thing at a time. Then discovery, transformation. And then you have more to offer. And it's very easy to kind of go, oh, you know, I mean, I mentioned, I was looking at this, I was thinking, you know, there are a lot of other basketball fans that probably hate Stephen Curry because he does this stuff to their team. You know? Also, you know, since I could go out there on a black gi, you know, with a scowl on his face, but the energy around him would give him away. Okay. You see what I mean? It's one impossible thing at a time. You become a kind of an alchemist or a scientist of a spirit, which he insisted he was. Yes, he was a martial artist. But then you enrich, bringing that you know, you're the next impossible version of yourself, not in a bad way. And then what happens is that there's a transformation that reaches out to whoever you're working with or whatever class you're in. And so if you approach a lot of what I do too small, you get really frustrated. And I get frustrated because, you know, I kind of go, well, you know, but a lot of people aren't like me. And that's no condemnation of anybody or praise for myself. It creates an issue with me. Okay? I'm not really intolerant. I accept most things. Okay? I don't accept our president right now with the situation he's put the country in, but that's called discernment. I don't want to get to where people die and the economy collapses just so he's voted out. You don't want to put your key in anything negative, but you do discern. So as we become more efficient people, what is off becomes much more apparent. And we all look and can see who's not wearing clothes, even though they're the emperor. Or we can all freely acknowledge the elephant in the room and have a discussion about it. That takes work. It's so easy to give yourself a label, just like this is ikkyo, this is ikkyo. Now this is nikyo. Ikkyo is a little different. There are subtle changes in your structure and more than anything your psychology to be able. That's why Curry, this thing today was like one impossible thing at a time. Nobody took 40-foot shots and made them when I was growing up. And just to watch one after another, I'm going, one impossible thing at a time. Okay? And so, Osensei was there. He could pull off one impossible thing at a time because he understood he was that impossible event, discovering himself at deeper and deeper levels. And let's face it, Aikido is going through issues just like everything is in this culture right now. But it's still alive. It's because of him. And there are a lot of probably martial arts that have a tradition and everything like that this pandemic is going to bury. But it's not going to bury Aikido as long as we keep that alive. Okay? It's about us. Okay? Anybody with a question or comment on that one? We are actually, so we covered, study is important. You can't just study. There is training. But if you quote unquote just train, people tend to kind of, you can be a label like a Republican or a conservative. Yeah, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are other issues of, do you have discernment? Or are you satisfied with your label? And Osensei wanted us to dig deeper. That's why he created this. He wanted us to reach that level where it's one impossible thing at a time. Okay? And then if everybody had that, we'd be sort of gods and goddesses in creation. And the world would be a lot better. Anybody with a question on any of the movements, the 30 movements, or ikkyo to nikyo to sankyo to yonkyo to gokyo? If somebody asked me what gokyo was, I just say probably gokyo was this motion. Which just means you're trapping and you're working the elbow, boom. But it's also a rear thrust, boom, boom. And I don't know if there's a seventh form or an eighth form or whatever, but there's an area where you need to use your imagination and you'd be surprised what you can figure out. I mean, I was taught this stuff as forms. Nobody ever explained it. But then again, this stuff doesn't, other things keep me up at night now. This stuff doesn't. But this stuff has kept me up. Okay, anybody with a question or whatever?
I would just say that if something happens, it wasn't impossible after all. It was possible.
It's not impossible. You see what I mean? What impossible, those of you, if you haven't seen it, go to CBS All Access and watch Star Trek Picard. And if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, one little tiny ship versus an armada. But it's Jean-Luc Picard. Okay, and it's kind of like one impossible thing at a time. That's what Aikido is supposed to be. is one impossible thing at a time. Okay. Anyway, so, you know, we didn't get a lot of stuff, but I hope I gave you some tools. Gave you some tools for you to start to explore and question. Because that's where we get the building blocks for one impossible thing at a time. Okay, so I think it's about 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift back from the kitchen, and maybe we'll either continue discussion, or maybe we'll kind of go into some of the O-sensei stuff. So we're about to shift locale. And anyway, yeah, you know, that particular thing, you know, with I've thought recently about it, like we did the training at the park, and you know, you can observe a certain amount of social distancing, and you, instead of grabbing your partner's wrist, you grab the end of your partner's staff, and that's, you know, especially with masks, that's pretty good. If I really had something to add to that, which I'll try to do next time, okay, is maybe just get some hand sanitizer so people can continue to train with one another and just periodically go over and wipe their hands. All right. So anyway, anybody else with a question about the ikkyo, nikyo, sankyo, yonkyo, gokyo? Those are names, but they're also, see, I was going to say, understood the technical part. It might have been very towards the end, but did he ever teach that? Man named Shirata Sensei, Shirata Rinjiro. He was quoted as saying he's pre-war, and then he also continued after World War II. He said, since they never explained anything. And Shirata Sensei's observation was, he just got out there and channeled the kami. Didn't explain anything. Just channeled the divine energies. One impossible thing at a time, even at the basic level. But he was so good that the people that were in that culture, that knew sumo, judo, kendo, some karate, they were just doing something. So, you know, that part of it, you know, was, I think, sometimes not as clear. Okay, now we have a whole technical body that's been passed on through generations from him, but just going back to the original source as best we can, which means, you know, I mean, that basically passed on the year I started, so that was 51 years ago now. So his physical existence is long gone. But the actual journey he was on, if we, to some degree, do a bit of it here, then that's still alive. Not that he's still alive. That is still alive. Okay? Anybody with a question or anything they'd like to share? Oh, no question. This is, we usually do this at the beginning, maybe a second or two, just to go in and, okay. Oh. Okay. And a lot of what Sensei is very, see, he's talking from that one impossible thing at a time place. But we're wrestling with, you know, by comparison, fairly mundane things. I'm also talking about myself. Okay, so his speech is very difficult to follow, but From the floating ridge of heaven, the seed syllable ah leads to me. Ame is the word for heaven. The two join with fire and water and make the manifest in hidden realms. Okay. A, O, U, E, become the bridge. And Su, Yu, Mu form spirit and matter through Aiki spirit. Through Aiki, spirit and matter are the threads that tie the universe together. So that's a lot there. The term for heaven, Ame. Okay, in Osensei's explanation, is self, Agatsu, self. Masaka Agatsu, run over yourself. If you're looking at the book, it's page 103. This is the secret teachings. And me is from the verb meguru. Okay, and it's a kind of I should look it up, but my understanding of it. Meguru is to revolve, but it also is to evolve. So heaven is self-revolving, change, transformation, self-evolving, transformation in a good direction. Okay? And he really stressed, and me. The two join with water and fire and make the manifest in the hidden realms. Now, one of the things that's interesting, the third one there, which is the divine realm. But everything that we see here is through the manifest in the hidden realms. He would do something like that and people would go flying. Physically, we saw him raise his hand and people tended to kind of go flying. Okay, that's physical. But on the other hand, there was an invisible interaction on a different level, energy, whatever you want to call it. That's the hidden realm. He doesn't address, for example, the divine realm there, because everything we see is through the manifest and the hidden. Okay? But let's see what the last part is. A, O, U, E become the bridge. Okay, so what is the bridge? It's open to a certain amount of speculation. But maybe the manifest and the hidden realms, there's a bridge to which we call the divine realm. And divine is oftentimes, shinkai, the level of kami. Okay. Genkai, manifest, material. Yukai, hidden, dimensional, energy movement. Shinkai, divine realm. And so it's almost like by leaving it out, he's pointing it out. I think that's a standard, what you call more of a teaching device than we realize, but there's the obvious. Now, then the A, O, U, E form a bridge from the hidden and the manifest realms, potentially to what he might call divine realm. Now, if you're doing all this fantastic stuff, on some level, you could say that is the divine realm. But what we're really seeing is the hidden realm. That there are other dimensions and there are other things possible. So, the actual difference between hidden and divine, He's saying there's a bridge. And what he calls heaven is not necessarily a place up there, and it's about self-revolving, evolving. It's an interior position. It's inside us. So there's a bridge to something here, okay? Our misogi is to establish peace, brotherhood, and harmony everywhere. So in the world, we do have a divine mission. See, if the actual training is leading us to more destruction, then we have to look at more chaos, more deaths than necessary. You have to examine that, okay? Because as he's positing it, that's what we're working for, and that's what we should manifest here, okay? And says always strive for this. All the myriad gods of the three worlds are really deep within you. So what's an interesting thing, see, he kind of slips in the divine realm without referencing it at all. And he says all the divine, all the myriad gods are within each of us. And so, you know, we're looking at what we see is either manifest or hidden, but the divine level of us is something inside each of us. And, you know, to some degree, what we're really looking for out there is in here. And so if we even are taking, for example, the ikkyo to nikyo hand change, as we get a little clearer with ourselves, so our knowledge base gets clearer. And again, there's a question of how much you really have to know. How much do you really, really have to know? And of course, that is moment by moment. Okay? But anyway, that's a pretty good one right there. If you want to go back over it, it's page 103 in the Secret Teachings. It's good to refresh that because, you know, that's kind of his consciousness. Okay, it's not that we're supposed to think like him, but you sort of realize that even on a level of, you know, the stream of consciousness going through him, was maybe a bit different than the stream of consciousness that runs through most of us at an eye level. Okay? So anybody with a question or a comment, especially on the changes in the staff work? See, you can actually train with the staff. The staff becomes your partner's arm, or the, you know, and here, you know, when you're taking the end of a staff, that becomes your partner's wrist or your partner's elbow. Okay? If you kind of really want something right there, you know what the most complex technique is in Aikido, as far as I can tell? It's kotegaishi. Actually working the changes out, hands, feet, hips, hands, directional changes. The actual principle, because gaishi is from the Japanese verb gayasu or kayasu. It's a reversal. It's an echo. And we go here, we turn, pivot, twist the wrist, and throw somebody down. But kotegaishi is in that movement of the staff. Kotegaishi. Yeah. If you want a little homework, as put out there as a little bit of a koan, you know, and really the worst thing for me to do is just say, okay, this is the answer, because my answer is hopefully ame, it's self-evolving, revolving. Okay, all right? So give that a little bit of thought. All right, you can do kotegaeshi with a sword, but kotegaeshi with spear changes, using the fire water changes is something. You gotta kind of fool around with it. You gotta research. Okay? Research and study are important. Research is not training. Training, you know, is you got to study. Okay? Now you research, you study. Okay? And study and research are still not training. All right. So I'll leave everybody with that. I thank you very much, all of you, for tuning in today. Okay. Hope you got something out of it. Thank you, by the way, those of you that went to the Santa Cruz retreat. Just, you know, just keeping me abreast about what was going over there. You know, I'm dealing with many things right here. So, you know, I kind of didn't actually manage to tune in. Okay. But thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to leave the meeting.
Thank you, David, for organizing
Thank
as
you.
always.
Daniel, turn your camera on so we can see you.
Nice to see you, Bonnie.
Nice to see you too, but thank you, David.
So I had a busy weekend. My wife usually works on the weekend, and this weekend she didn't. And